Now, all revved up for more red-hot motorsport, it's the LG Super Racing Weekend with
Yokohama, power of performance.
Estoril in Portugal, the venue for the 10th and final LG Super Racing Weekend and the title decider in the FIA GT Championship. Well, it would start in wet conditions after heavy overnight rain and with the cold and blustery wind howling off the Atlantic against the Portuguese circuit. And Estoril, Portugal's premier racing track, is a real driver's challenge. Big swooping curves, some tight stuff as well, lots of gradient to deal with, and the last corner, the big balls, 180-degree parabolica Ayrton Senna, which leads them onto the long front straight. Several genuine and a couple of other imagined overtaking opportunities around this 4.1-kilometre circuit. And the man sitting on pole position, Andrea Piccini in the Ferrari. Two Ferraris at the front, two listers behind. What's the prospect for the race? Well, the track's very slippery, says Andrea. This morning, conditions in the warm-up were very wet, and we had a spin. It was very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to stay in front again this afternoon, or in fact, this morning. So the two Ferraris, first and second, with Piccini starting on pole position. Then the two Lister Storms, but dramas for championship challenger Christophe Bouchou, who was 2 points behind David Terrian coming in here, and some 3.5 ahead of Nicola Springer and Jamie Campbell-Walter, because as the field set off, the number one Labra Viper was stranded in the pit lane. Well, here's the way they lined up. Jean-Denis Delatraz and Andrea Piccini, with Enzo Calderari, Lilian Brinner, and the starting driver, Jean-Marc Gounon, ahead of Campbell-Walter and Springer, Verdenrode, Warnock, and Ian McKellar Jr. Then Keppelari and Golin for Carsport Holland, Amarin and Babini for Belmondo in their Vipers. The number 2 car, Rosenblad and Terrian, and then the number 8 car, Hazemans and Kumpen. Then the number 9 Ferrari, the Red Bull car, Riccitelli and Dieter Cuesta, Philippe Alliot and David Hallyday eschew their Ferrari again for a Viper, and are going reasonably well. And not in 13th spot on the grid, Christophe Bouchou sharing with Vincent Voss the number 1 car that broke under him at Donington during the race and is now in the pit lane, hopefully ready to take the start. The two Velux Ferraris on row 10, Tim Sugden, Andrew Cacoldi, and Jamie Davis with Ivan Capelli right up towards the front of the NGT field, and so too is the Certec Motorsport Porsche, and that's a very good showing indeed for Adam Jones and Romain Dumas, who last time out at Silverstone co-drove Stefan Ortelli to victory in the NGT class. So Ortelli confirmed as the NGT class winner, but the JMB Ferrari team battling for the team's trophy with Freisinger Motorsport, although the Ferraris really on the back foot here, outpaced by the cars from the British series, the Velox Motorsport pair, as Andrea Bertolini is stuck down deep in the midfield in the number 50 car, their lead car, and as well as the GT Drivers title, the GT Teams title being squabbled over between Labra and Lister. So, the safety car leading them round at the end of the pace lap, cuts across the grass into the pits as the lights go off, and we're ready for the start on slippery surface conditions. Now, some for sure will have gambled on slicks, but who has played safe on wets? Piccini comes towards us from the left-hand side of the picture, inside of the front row. Gounon second, Campbell-Walter third, Bobby Verdenrode in fourth place. Around the outside goes Mike Hazemans, was that? I think that, no, can't really have been, can it? The number 3 Carsport Holland car, one of them's gone through there. Another one way back down the order, though. Then the Belmondo car, well, you would assume it would be Golin, unless Hazemans got the most monumental of starts. So let's assume it's car number 4, Golin and Capellari there. The Red Bull Ferrari looking strong here. They may have perhaps full wets on, as opposed to, let's say, a guesstimate of intermediates for some of the others. And in the traffic, well, the number 50 Ferrari shows us how busy it is. There is one of the car Sport Holland cars in front of him, and that, I'm sure that is car number 3 in 5th position there. And that's a remarkable start indeed from the number 3 car. Mike Haseman's going great guns, not going to win the championship now, but it is Haseman's in 5th place there, rather, looking for a very good race here. And Haseman's has come off the outside of row 4 of the grid, up from 8th place in the first corner, as Golin and Capillari's number 4 machine has dropped way down the order. There's the number 12 car, Fabio Babini, sharing that one with Ni Anarim, of course the Portuguese driver, his local circuit. And there's Belmondo's car ahead of the Diablo, the Lamborghini Diablo, which will be entered in next year's GT Championship as a full season entry. Well, it's very slippery indeed. There's the Freisinger Porsche leading, the Certec Porsche second in the NGT classer. The Freisinger car is in 3rd place as well, ahead of the 2 Velux Racing entries, 4th and 5th, with Jamie Davis and Andrew Kokotti, their cars respectively. But the leaders, 23 and 22 in that order, Andrea Piccini and Jean-Marc Gounod. 3rd place at the moment, Jamie Campbell-Walter, starting to look for a way around the Frenchman. Gounod runs a little wide out there, defending. See a very different line from Piccini's through the S's. Everybody still looking for grip, but Campbell-Walter, I think, looking for grip and 2nd place. Bobby Burdenrow in 4th, Haseman's 5th, and starting the 12 car, Fabio Babini in 6th position. Then Riccitelli in the Ferrari, ahead of Emmanuel Clerico in his Viper. And the NGT runners at the moment starting to nibble their way through the tail end of the GT field. Less power to put down, less weight to stop. It makes it a little easier for them compared to the bigger cars when conditions are slippery. We've yet to see an overall win in a GT race for an NGT car. We will really need some pretty soaking conditions for that. And, well, let's hope that this finale in Estoril is not as rain-swept as some races here have been. Estoril, right on the westerly coast of Portugal, and as close to being in the Atlantic as Europe gets, really. The weather comes straight in off the ocean across the circuit. There's very little warning when stuff arrives, particularly from the pits, which are facing in the wrong direction for the prevailing wind. Jamie Campbell-Walter up into 2nd place, and here is the number 2 Labra Viper in the pits and out of the race. David Tarian saying we had a little problem with the throttle, maybe a broken throttle cable or a sensor of some kind, and unfortunately we're not going to be able to restart it. It's a shame because you're leading the championship. Yeah, well, we had a problem before the start, and we had to start behind everybody because we didn't get away cleanly on the green flag lap. The throttle cable broke. We had no problems at all weekend, but now as the race starts, a real disaster. And very hard, he says. And you can imagine it is, of course, dropped out of the number 1 car of Christophe Bouchou to try and, according to the Labra team, spread their championship chances at Donington Park and beyond. Well, he certainly felt that he'd been dropped from the car and was really, really very pleased indeed for himself, personally, to have fared well at Donington Park while Bouchou retired. But now the boot seems to be on the other foot. Bouchou, having started from the back, is still on track. And the number 2 Labra Viper, starting from its normal grid spot, you heard was a bit of a mix-up there. So they too in trouble in the formation lap process. But out of the race now after just a couple of laps, and the championship leader coming into the final round is out of contention. Piccini leads from Campbell-Walter, 3rd is Gounod, 4th is Burdenrow, and somebody's off in the gravel there. Number 3 car of Mike Haseman's in 5th position. In fact, the number 15 Lister Storm not Bobby Verdon-Rowe starting it, but Ian McKellar Jr. who is doing the opening stint. And although he's done plenty of GT racing in Britain, that means plenty of rain. I think I'm probably right in assuming this will be his first taste of Estoril. Not sure whether he got a chance to drive in the warm-up, which was soaking wet this Sunday morning. But certainly Estoril a very different proposition from anywhere he's used to, rain or not. Well, the top five stringing out now. Campbell Walter in second place, chasing the Ferrari. And is Piccini looking for water to keep his wet weather tyres safe and sound? Or was he just hogging the inside line to deny it to Campbell Walter? Jamie not yet looking to try and cool the Dunlops that much. Have to wait and see how the weather changes. Can already see that most of the water has run off the surface. Doesn't dry very quickly compared to some tracks. This surface at Estoril, it's quite old, quite fine in its grain, and that means that it tends to hold the surface water a lot. You see this a lot on modern motorway surfaces. The newer surfaces on high-speed roads tend to have a bigger grain pattern to them, if you like, where the water sits not as a sheen across the surface, but actually within the surface to give a little more grip as it dries off. But on some of the older surfaces, and certainly it's pretty polished in places here at Estoril, as you can see from the reflection off the wet track through the camera lens causing that flare. It is still very slippery until it gets bone dry, but there is a bit of a breeze coming in off the Atlantic. The sun is out as well, cars pounding around, all help to dry the track. 3 laps in, leader in NGT is Ortelli in 11th position, with Philippe Alliot's Viper behind him. And there's something for the Monegasques. Jamie Campbell-Walter now senses that the Ferrari is struggling to find the traction, and Piccini is really clinging on there, where tooth and nail. Campbell-Walter looking more assured, more poised, more balanced on the road. Out of the parabolic Ayrton Senna he comes, right behind Piccini, not quite close enough yet for an early manoeuvre. This will have to be late if it's coming at all, but he's got the toe down the straight. Piccini will stay on the inside. Campbell-Walter around the outside. Can he make it? Don't think so. And watch Hazeman's there behind, also searching out the damp on his tyres. And now they are starting to work their way into the NGT runners, and here another chance perhaps for the cars behind to make moves on those in front. Jean-Marc Gounon shaking off Ian McKellar Jr. momentarily and closing up towards Jamie Campbell-Walter. But again, the Ferrari running out wide. Campbell-Walter able to take a much tighter line, looking to the inside, in through the number 51 JMB car they go. Andrea Montemini and Andrea Gavagnati last on the road at the moment. Don't know why they have been delayed so much. Maybe it was they in the gravel that the safety car was coming to get. You can see there is gravel all over the road at the moment. So a couple of cars clearly have gone off somewhere. So the number 23 car shown as Delatraz on the timing and scoring, but it is Andrea Piccini who started it. Campbell-Walter, Gounon, McKellar, then Mike Hazemans and Riccitelli in the Red Bull car. And there is the 82 Velox Racing Ferrari of Jamie Davis, the Formula 3000 driver and one of my colleagues here at Eurosport, off in the gravel. And let's hope that they can get the car running again. Marshals have pushed him back, but he's struggling to find reverse, it would seem. Either that or not keen to back off into the traffic. And you can understand why, as he is off there in the S's that lead up to the Parabolica. Now the Proton Porsche in the way, but it won't be when they reach the first corner. A problem for Piccini, or will it? Yes, they'll go inside it, actually. Down inside they go. And still Campbell-Walter in second place, hanging on, looking for a move. What about third and fourth? Ferrari's there in third place. And where has the Lister Storm gone in fourth place? Ian McKellar, it seems, didn't quite get past. And again, Campbell-Walter squirts it out there of that extra tight third left-handed corner, down into the VIP turn behind the bottom end of the paddock here at Estoril. And then running along the back of the paddock through this flat-out right-hand kink. Must be tippy-toey stuff in this weather. Well, Ian McKellar starting to fall back into the clutches of Mike Hazemans. Hazemans is now starting to feel his tyres coming in. I wonder if he started maybe on slick tyres. Maybe he's been struggling for grip early on. Well, there will definitely be different choices of tyres here. Some will have gambled on the racetrack drying quicker than others. And those out front with points to prove and battles to win will probably have erred a little on the side of caution. Well, the Velox Racing Ferrari of Andrew Cocotti still running strongly. He is on slicks. Of course, teams tend to be very cautious about giving away details of what their strategies are to the TV, just in case somebody happens to be watching. But Jamie Campbell-Walter, again, with great drive out of the final corner, gets the Lister hooked up, and there was nothing Piccini could do about that. Campbell-Walter was coming by on speed alone. Now under braking, though, as bits of used rubber drop off the Lister. Piccini down the inside, but look at the way that they both nearly collided there. Campbell-Walter barely able to bring the car to a halt enough to avoid Piccini, who came hurtling up the inside, had to absolutely nail the anchors, and then couldn't turn. He could stop, but he couldn't get it round the corner. And there, well, Ian McKellar wheel-to-wheel for fourth place with the number 3 car, and wheel-to-wheel for the lead as well. This is really shaping up into a great battle, a real challenge for the drivers. Add water to this Estoril track and it really is a magnificent playground. And for many years coming here in the Formula 1 Turbo era and watching teams practicing in the rain to no avail because they weren't learning anything, but drivers like Nelson Piquet going out in his Benetton and just sailing around for 20 or 30 laps on opposite lock because he could, and because Formula 1 cars just didn't allow you to do that so much, even in those days. Well, for these drivers, getting the tail out is not the idea. Certainly won't be helping them in terms of pace. And now bunched up behind some of the slower cars is a real chance again for Jamie Campbell-Walter. See how much slower some of these tail enders are. Really very, very much in the way. Aaron and Rob de Svan in the 34 car, that's their family Viper, holding everybody up, and Piccini really blocked badly there. Didn't make the best choice of track through the traffic, and Jamie Campbell-Walter comes across the line, 2.5 seconds up, having gone into the final couple of corners in 2nd place. Well, the Russian drivers in front of him, Nikolai Fomenko and Alex Vasiliev in their car, the RWS Motorsports Porsche, and a second RWS Motorsport car this weekend for Norman Seaman and Briton Paul Knapfield, who of course raced in the Lister Storm earlier in the season. But it is the Lister Storm of Jamie Campbell-Walter leading from Andrea Piccini, not Jean-Denis Delachair. Jean-Marc Guenon 3rd, Mike Hazelman's 4th, Ian McKellar Jr. 5th, and still Luca Riccitelli in the Red Bull Porsche in 6th position, and still Stefano Telli leading in NGT in the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche. Final race in the FIA GT Championship, 11 laps old, and Jamie Campbell-Walter leading in the Lister Storm. Well, he has now one man to beat for the driver's title, and that one man is Christophe Bouchou, who started from the pit lane in the number 1 Labra Viper. The man who led the points coming here, Christophe Bouchou's erstwhile teammate David Terrian, already out as we see the battle for 3rd. Mike Hazelman's is coming on strong in number 3, the Car Sport Holland car. Passes Jean-Marc Guenon on grip alone through turn 1. Checks the mirrors into turn 3. Guenon's inside him, but he's got room to race and grip to spare. And at the moment, Mike Hazelman's about the fastest car on the track. So Guenon holding on as long as he could, but Hazelman's now motoring on in the Car Sport Holland car. And there, Ian McKellar Jr. in 5th spot in the Lister Storm. 7th, though, Christophe Bouchou up from the tail end of the field as he starts to make progress in this race. Mike Hazelman's making the move on Jamie Campbell-Walter inside, and he's got the grip to pull it off. The Pirelli wet weather tyres going very well indeed. And I sense perhaps that as he's got quicker as the track has dried, that the Car Sport Holland crew have gambled on an intermediate rather than a full wet tyre. And that's why Hazelman's, although he started strongly, has taken a dozen or so laps before he could start utilising the extra grip as the surface allowed him. Well, here he comes down the inside of Campbell Walter. Jamie sees him coming into turn 3, and it makes no effort to defend against that at all. It'll be, you'll get through or you'll crash. 20 laps into the race, the final FIA GT counter of the season. And Mike Hazeman's leading has long since gone. Jamie Campbell Walter under pressure now from the Ferrari of Andrea Piccini. And further back behind the other Lister Storm is the Velux Racing Ferrari, which is running strongly in the NGT category as the GT leaders battle through the slower cars. Piccini inside this time. Campbell Walter lets him go. Again, Jamie will battle all the way as he can, as hard as he can if he knows he's got the tools. But he tends to try and race clean and fair. And that time Piccini was safely through on the inside. Give him room and get the same back in return, I think is the motto there. So Andrea Piccini up into second in the Ferrari that, of course, started from pole position. But the race leader has long gone. Mike Hazeman's out front. Passing the Certec Motorsport Porsche. Two Certec cars here, Adam Jones and Romain Dumas, and the Portuguese Pedro Neveia with Roger Walter of Great Britain. And Adam Jones and Romain Dumas going extremely well. Christophe Bouchou up into 5th place, passing the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche. That's the 55 car of Stefan Daudi and Bert Longin, also going for the GT Teams Championship. 24 laps into the race, and as the track continues to dry, now look at Luca Riccitelli in the Red Bull Porsche, Ferrari rather. So used to saying Red Bull Porsche. Red Bull Ferrari is all over the back of the Lister Storm. And apart from the two red ProDrive built cars, this is the best showing I think we've seen by a Ferrari of any kind in the series. The RWS, the Red Bull team, really with their dart racing crew starting to make this car a goer. And in the drying conditions, looks as though the weather is coming to them, to their tyres, and certainly a surplus of power there as you saw the tails snap around. Now he's inside Piccini and making it look so easy, isn't he, here? Gets it hooked up and away he goes. And again, is it the choice of tyre? Hazeman's the race leader on Pirellis. And in second place now, Riccitelli in the Ferrari on Pirellis. Jamie Campbell Walter here squabbling for 3rd place on Dunlops. The 3rd place battle on Dunlops. But now into the pits comes Andrea Piccini. Piccini has seen the writing on the wall and has shouted hard into the radio, "Get me new tyres." In he comes, and they must surely be going for a full set of slick tyres to combat the dry track. Well, Piccini saying that the car's been running very strongly, very difficult at the beginning. In Anderstorp in similar conditions with this same tyre choice, it was going well, but here it doesn't seem to work so well. The Pirelli tyres are quicker. Lister started on intermediates, and we've been really struggling here. Anyway, we managed to battle the Lister as much as we could. I think that the number 1 car, he says, that's Bouchou, will be favourite for the win. Into the pits, the race leader. Mike Hazeman's will hand over to Anthony Kumpen. Kumpen in the door, helping his team boss out. Twan Hazeman's at the front in the red jacket, overseeing things. In fact, that is the chief engineer. Twan Hazeman's always will be there, around or about somewhere. So as they come in, so too does the number 1 car. Interesting to hear Andrea Piccini tipping Bouchou's car as a potential race winner here. Well, Bouchou has handed over the car as it gets back on track. Let's hear from him. Vincent Voss is at the wheel. Bouchou saying, our plan, we have to go as fast as we can. We had a good start. We started from the pits, and I managed to get up into 3rd place. The conditions were pretty tough. Vincent is out there now. He's in 6th place after the pit stop. And hopefully we'll pick up a few places we really need to. and maybe on the last run I'll be able to really push it to the limit to overtake as many cars as possible, and we'll cross our fingers and just see what happens. Well, Bushi with a positive start then, and here the 32 Red Bull car in, and again certainly slick tyres as Dieter Questa takes it out. So 36 laps into the race, the battle for the lead is on once more. Jamie Campbell-Walter has stopped, and new tyres on the Lister, and as the track has now fully dried out, the ascendancy back with the Dunlop shod car. He takes the lead from number 3, Anthony Kumpen, on the Pirelli shod Lister, Viper, beg your pardon, as the Lister Storm moves back up the order. So Campbell-Walter staying in for 2 consecutive stints to make the best of the fresh tyres, chasing the Velux Racing Ferrari in front of him. That means Nick Springer will do the 3rd stint and hopefully hand over the car at the end for Jamie to do the finish. Final FIA GT race of the year at Estoril is 37 laps old. Little over an hour gone, and Jamie Campbell-Walter, the race leader, setting again the fastest lap of the race. And there is a spin at Paul Belmondo in the first turn. Campbell-Walter being chased by the sole remaining Velux Racing NGT Ferrari now. There is the Lamborghini Diablo, the Reiter car, and Paul Belmondo out of the car, abandoned it in the middle of the track, right on the, well, runoff area on the exit of the first turn, and that's a blind corner. The transmission has locked itself solid with a differential failure of some kind, drivetrain failure of some kind. Safety car is out while they try and drag the stranded car away from that obvious place of danger. So now then, in the pits is the Dieter Questa, Luca Riccatelli Ferrari. Now, has that lost the rear wing, or have they just taken the boot lid off to pull it back into the garage? Either way, it's not looking like a short stop for them, and that's a shame. This car, don't forget, has led the race early on in the slippery conditions, but it looks as though it will be game over for the Red Bull Ferrari. Safety car ready to pull off after 3 laps out on the track. 41 laps now. Ooh. Anthony Kumpen, you better not overtake some before you see those lights. The Viper there, 3rd in the queue, is not actually on the same lap, the Lister rather. I don't mean that, I mean the Diablo, Lamborghini, that's the word, wouldn't come to me. Everybody mixed up behind the pace car as they were picked up, so the field in a jumbled up order, but 1st and 2nd on the road are 1st and 2nd in the race. Jamie Campbell-Walter leading from the Viper of Anthony Kumpen. Jean-Denis Delatraz is now at the wheel of the 23 Ferrari in 3rd place. Fabio Babini in the 12 Belmondo car 4th. Stefan Ortelli leading NGT up to 5th place overall. Enzo Calderati, Lilian Brinner and Jean-Marc Goulon's Ferrari drops down to 6th position. Vincent Boss and Christophe Bouchou's number 1 car in 7th, Ian McKellar Jr. in 8th, and Adam Jones 2nd in NGT in 10th place. .48 laps into the race, and here comes the move for 2nd place. Delatraz, the Swiss, steaming up the inside there and locking them up, and he's under pressure from behind as well. Number 3 car, Anthony Kumpen. Then Delatraz in the red Ferrari car 23, and right behind the Lister Storm. And that is the Ian McKellar Jr., Dave Warnock, Bobby Verdon-Rowe car. And with McKellar having started it, it looks as though it may well be Bobby Verdon-Rowe behind the wheel of the number 15 machine. 14 Lister Storm is leading at this stage. This is the battle for 2nd between the Viper and the Ferrari. And the Lister at this stage, well, off the lead lap. Himself a real nuisance in the middle of this battle. Poor Puccini can't really concentrate on what he wants to do, because the Lister as is his right, I guess, trying to pass race cars that are in front of him, even if that only serves to unlap himself. There's no point in not passing people if you're a lap down. Absolutely none at all. You may as well pack up your helmets and go home, and that doesn't seem to be the way that the Lister team play the game. Too often, giving up doesn't occur to Lawrence Pierce. So Delatraz hanging on to second place, but by the skin of his teeth. NGT leader, still Stefan Ortelli, still Adam Jones in second place, in the second Freisinger car of Bert Longin now, who's taken over from Stefan Dowdy in third spot in the NGT category. And they're going very strongly, 56 laps in, and the Freisinger Motorsport car, the 54 car, has been in front throughout. And it was at Donington Park last weekend, or 2 weekends ago rather, the last super racing weekend, that Ortelli gained his title. There's Romain Dumas, in fact, in the Certec Motorsport Porsche, taken over from Adam Jones in second in the NGT category. And the other Freisinger Porsche in third spot. And there is that other Freisinger Motorsport Porsche, the Franco-Belgian partnership, Stefan Dowdy and Bert Longin. And currently it's the Belgian at the helm. Into the pits comes Jamie Campbell-Walter, and this will be to hand over to Nick Springer. Lawrence Pierce at the front of the car in the red headset. Dunlop tyre technicians checking the rubber. Now, Jamie took fresh tyres. Will they have fresh tyres to give to Nick Springer? Well, there are tyres there if he needs them, and Springer's job was to try and keep the lead alive. An 11-second lead Jamie Campbell-Walter had when he came in. And away goes Springer. It all seems so slow until you get past the speed restrictor. Now away he goes. 70 laps into the race, into hour 3. And into the pit lane comes the number 22 Ferrari for a stop-and-go penalty, passing under yellow flags. And that allows the number 1 car, Christophe Boucher and Vincent Voss, up into 4th place. 4th place for the number 1 car. And a long, long wait there. That's a Jean-Marc Gounon, Enzo Calderari, Lilian Brinner car. And obviously pinged for speeding as Lilian Brinner left the pits, having taken over from Enzo Calderari. Step 1 in taking over the car, don't stall. Step 2, don't speed. Lap 76, the Lister Storm. Nick Springer at the wheel, right behind him, the number 23 Ferrari, Andrea Piccini. It's a little bit of an unfair battle, even Springer would admit that quite freely. He is an enthusiastic amateur in a front-running sea of professionals, but he does a good job in keeping his end up, stays out of trouble, brings the car back in one piece, and tries to avoid losing too much to these guys. And Springer, who is first and foremost a businessman, against Piccini, who is a top-flight single-seater driver and turned sports car race. Well, it's hardly surprising the Ferrari straight by for the lead. Number 3 car there in third place, the number 1 car still in 4th position, but both of those cars going quicker at the moment than the Lister Storm in front of them. 82 laps into what could be 120 laps, but probably won't. The 3-hour mark will come up quicker than that. And here is the move for second place for Mike Hasemans in the Carsport Holland car. Squirts up the inside of the chicane past Nick Springer. And again, Springer giving him room, not waving him by any means, but making sure that there's no contact, no dramas, no damage, no mistakes. And damage, of course, cost them so dearly at Donington Park, where perhaps they could have won, but for contact with the Ferrari that led to the front right corner being damaged, the bonnet being ripped off, and the air restrictors being damaged. So the Lister now from the lead down to third. Closing stages of the FIA GT race, the final of the season. And here, Christophe Bouchou in the #1 Labra car in third place. Andrea Piccini leading, Mike Haseman second. But importantly, Jamie Campbell-Walter back in fourth place. He took the car over finally from Nick Springer around 20 minutes before the end of the race, desperate to try and get back ahead of Bouchou, but all to no avail, it would seem. Right in front is Bobby Verdenroe. Verdenroe in the number 15 car, some way down the order after delays, but I think he will do his best to avoid letting Bouchou pass too easily, slow down the #1 car and give Jamie Campbell-Walter a chance to pass. Nothing really unsportsmanlike, just a little bit of, well, let's say, making your car a fraction wider. And Bouchou, I'm sure, will expect nothing less from a good teammate for himself, and therefore can expect nothing less from a good teammate for a rival. Verdenroe working his way through traffic. Ahead of him, the NGT leader, Stefan Ortelli's car, being driven by Sascha Maassen. Pricing a Porsche, still leading in NGT, as it has been pretty much all the way through the race. Bouchou right behind the number 15 Lister Storm now. Jamie Campbell-Walter closing. But will it be fast enough? And more importantly, even if he gets past Bouchou, can he catch and pass the second and first place men, which he will need to do? 5 minutes, T5, 5 minutes left, says the pit board, and P3, third place. Bouchou from here, already with an advantage in points over Jamie Campbell-Walter, knows he can win the championship. Pricing a Porsche in the middle. Sascha Maassen will do his best to stay well out of the way. He doesn't want to have his race ruined by some oik in a Viper knocking him off. So he will stay as much out of the way as possible. Sporting thoughts aside, it's self-preservation that dictates that. He has a handsome enough lead in the NGT category not to have to worry too much about stepping to one side and letting front-running GT cars through. And here comes the Ferrari. Indeed, here come the two Ferraris. 22 with the yellow stripe ahead of 23. In fact, there's 3 Ferraris because, or is it 4? It looks like a Velox Racing Ferrari ahead of a JMB Ferrari. Indeed it is. Playing at the end of the race. Tim Sugden and Andrew Cocotti's car still going. Ivan Capelli didn't get to drive here, I'm afraid, in the race in Portugal, because the second Velox car failed, number 82 failed under Jamie Davis. After his off, it seems as though they had a steering problem of some kind. They had engine and transmission problems at Donington Park. The team still learning the cars all the way and learning this championship, learning the cars as well in this series, because it's different rules to the British GT series. Cars not wildly different, but different enough. They have to run slightly different aero packages, and the brakes and suspension relating to the brakes are all different as well, because in this series they use iron brakes, but in the British series they can use carbon. And that means that you change the suspension quite drastically as well to account for that. So last few minutes of the race then, and we will certainly not make the 120-lap full distance. There's our race leader, Andrea Piccini. Mike Haseman's half a minute behind nearly. Christophe Bouchou a further half a minute behind nearly. So Andrea Piccini crosses the line to add another lap onto the scoring chart. And still the 22 car running interference ahead of him. He won't need any blocking or any assistance to work his way through traffic, but there's no need at all for the 22 car to slow down yet. They can wait until the checkered flag is within sight and then do it for the photos. Just in front you saw the Certec Porsche battling with the second Freisinger Motorsport car of Daldi and Longin, 4th, 2nd in the NGT class, and still The number 1 Labra Viper can't get past the number 15 Lister Storm. Do you know, with 3 minutes remaining, he doesn't need to. I'm sure he would have made more effort if he did need to, though. Closing in from behind is Jamie Campbell-Walter, but with 3.5 minutes left in the championship, Campbell-Walter might catch, he might pass Bouchou, but he will not get enough points unless Bouchou retires now to win the championship from him. So Bouchou, long-time series leader, with David Terrian. They were split at Donington Park to increase the team's chances of having one car finish with a title-contending driver. And in the end, Bouchou's car didn't finish and Terrian's did. He came here leading his teammate by 2 points, leading Campbell-Walter and Springer by 5.5. And now, well, he won't score at all, but still, the Lister Storm too far back down the order to take the championship. As it stood at the halfway stage, they would have been champions, but by the end of the race, even passing Bouchou won't be enough really to put a smile on Jamie Campbell-Walter's face, because he will be disappointed not to have won this race, never mind the championship. For Jamie, well, he knows that they weren't title favourites, and they were really quite surprised to find themselves doing so well earlier in the season, genuinely not at all expecting to be front-running contenders for the title, still at the 10th race of the year. But they were, and they gave it everything they had. Well, there you see the Labra drivers and crew on the pit wall. Sébastien Bourdais, the bespectacled Frenchman, who barely got a couple of laps in the number 2 car before it failed on him. Carl Rosenblatt and David Terrian. There's Terrian right at the back. Well, looking pretty glum, because he too could have been champion. If only they hadn't separated the two of them, he'll be thinking. And I wonder whether we'll see him in a Labra car next year. It'll take a big man to forgive the team for ditching him when it came down to the wire. And I really do think that's the way he'll see it. And for Bouchou to win the championship 1 point ahead of Terrian, I think, well, the Labra team can put whatever spin they like on it. I think it's mealy-mouthed and shoddy treatment of a driver who has been given precious little time in the car in respect of Christophe Bouchou, who's done the lion's share not only of the racing but also of the qualifying time and of the testing. And David Terrian has still come out, in my eyes at least, as a very strong title contender who, I'm sorry, after 8 races, I would not have bumped out of the car. I don't think that is the right way to have done it. But there again, I just talk about it for a living. I don't actually have to make these decisions. So there you go. So the Ferraris, well, flattered perhaps a little to deceive, but the 23 car has run very strongly, and Jean-Marc Gounon gave Superpole everything, coming up second in the Superpole and having a very strong opening run as well. But it will be Car Sport Holland that win here in Portugal. And a very strong drive indeed from Mike Hasemans and Anthony Kumpen. We've seen plenty of changes, haven't we? The Listers led, the Ferraris led, the other Ferrari, the Red Bull Ferrari has led, and the Car Sport Holland car has led, and they all in their turn have dropped back, come back once more to the front, drop back, come back. It's been a real changeable race. In NGT, well, the one constant there has been the presence of the number 54 Freisinger Motorsport Porsche out front, and as the order settled down, Adam Jones and Romain Dumas in the Certec car you're looking at the moment, in front of the 2 Ferraris, that was the real best contender. And the way it's shaken down, the 3rd car, the 2nd Freisinger Motorsport Porsche, has also been able to outpace the Ferraris. And Ferrari, who looked so strong last year in the NGT category, have seen that ebb away. But instead, the 550 Maranellos winning here in Estoril, looking as strong as they did at this racetrack last year in the hands of the ProDrive crew. So the Ferrari photo finish then, and I'm getting my Ferraris and Vipers back to front. The 23 Ferrari taking the checkered flag, but the attention of the Labra team certainly will be on car number 1. 4th place is enough, more than enough, as David Halliday and Philippe Alliot's Viper spins in the final couple of corners. Fourth place is enough for Christophe Bouchou to take the championship title by 1 point from his teammate David Therian. And, well, maybe Therian will applaud and congratulate him, but deep down I think he feels, should have been me, should at least have been joint champion. Bouchou tends to like to do things his own way, and in the end he'll turn around and say, look, we were right, we won the championship, and if we hadn't split our drivers up, maybe we wouldn't have done. Well, maybe and maybe not. So Christophe Bouchou, the 2001 FIA GT champion, is now Christophe Bouchou, the 2002 FIA GT champion. Bouchou and the Labre team, should they care to return to the series next year, will again carry the #1 plate. And Sascha Maassen bringing home the Freisinger Motorsport Porsche to win the NGT category. It almost goes without saying, but nothing is as easy as those guys make it seem. Ortelli, the champion in NGT at Donington Park, and now the GT title settled in favour of Christophe Bouchou. So Piccini, the winner then, from the Hazelmans and Kumpen Viper. Jean-Denis Delatraz, of course, also with Andrea Piccini. Campbell, Walter and Springer gave it everything. They took third place, a finish on the podium, but just a few points short of the title. Bouchou and Vos in fourth place, giving Bouchou the title, ahead of the second of the BMS Scuderia Italia Ferraris. And in the NGT category, Ortelli and Maassen ahead of Jones and Dumas in second position in the Certec Motorsport Porsche. And they were 7th and 8th overall. Kim Sugden and Andrew Cocotti bringing the Velox Ferrari onto the podium, third in NGT. Fantastic weekend, really, said Christophe Bouchou, after all the problems we had in Donington and here at the start as well. It's fantastic and really unexpected because we started so badly here. Very proud of my first stint. We started from the back and I managed to recover and to get enough points, and at the end I was very careful, and I'm very happy. So the championship then by 1 point from Bouchou over his teammate Therian, and Nick Springer and Jamie Campbell-Walter 2.5 points away from the championship. Well, heartbreakingly close for the runners-up, but in the end Bouchou just enough to claim another title, and the Labre team also beat the Lister team and the Carsport team in the team's championship.
Mixed emotions, you know. The car was fantastic today. The Dunlop tyres were very good, and you know, Nick and I both didn't put a foot wrong really, and you know, it's one of those things, you know, it was certain points needed this and that and the other, and we did our best, and you know, we didn't win it, but we've had a great season. It's exceeded all our expectations really, and you know, I think we can call it a great success for Lister.
So the Labre team win again, and they were pushed so close, weren't they? And who knows, maybe if the BMS team had had a little bit more winter testing with their Ferrari, it could have been an entirely different story. Ortelli then adds to his championship points. Pescatori, last year's champion, in second place. And the various assorted Emmanuel Collars, Mark Liebs, Sascha Maassens, and so on, who have co-driven with Ortelli, helping Freisinger to claim the team's champion ahead of last year's title holders JMB Racing. So the Swiss cross there for Jean-Denis Delatraz, Andrea Piccini, the Italian driver, Mike Hazelmans and Anthony Kumpen, the Dutchman and the Belgian, and of course on the third step of the podium, Britain Jamie Campbell-Walter and German Nicholas Springer. So congratulations to all our series champions. Thank you so much for staying with us throughout what have been 10 fantastically, grippingly exciting LG Super Racing weekends. And I'm looking forward already to next year with great excitement. Not just the GTs, an improved European Touring Car Championship, the prospect of the new V6 Formula Renault cars. Yes, so much. But before that, join me at 8 on British Eurosport on Wednesday evening for a look back at Portugal, and then a special programme following that, looking behind the scenes as we join Monica Sips and the Nord Auto Alfa Romeo Touring Car team for the weekend. And that will bring us to the end of our FIA GT coverage and indeed our Super Racing weekends. I'd like to say thank you to David Leslie and Jamie Davis, who have been so helpful throughout the season, but most of all, thank you to you for watching. Bye for now.
With LG Electronics, digitally yours.